Hey, 42 here. Do you ever look down at your favourite snack and think, how did we get here? In just a few thousand years, we've gone from hunting mammoth to arguing over pizza toppings. Take something like a cheeseburger. That seems like a pretty simple thing, right? But think about everything that needed to happen in order for you to destroy your waistline with bovine deliciousness. We needed to make the bread that rises, domesticate cattle, extract sugar for the ketchup, and this is before we even get onto the cheese. Who worked out that squeezing a cow's nipples and letting it go mouldy would turn out to be one of the greatest joys in the universe? Let's be honest, food is weird. So let's look at 6 things that completely changed how we eat. Obviously, the first major step was when we learnt how to control fire. Despite what raw food enthusiasts may tell you, cooking is vital to our development as a species. The chemical changes that it creates enable us to absorb a far higher amount of useful energy, which is how we were able to make the evolutionary jump to having such gigantic brains, which gobble energy even if you're just sitting there staring at the wall. You know, like Friday nights. To give you some examples, the body absorbs about 30% more energy from cooked oats and wheat than when they're raw, and a whopping 78% more from a cooked egg compared to raw eggs. So maybe stop drinking mayonnaise and just have a fry up instead, you know, like a normal person. The process of cooking, including things like chopping and grinding as well as heating, means your digestive system does far less work to extract energy. Since you've already broken down the meat's connective tissues or softened the plant's cell walls, you're basically outsourcing that work so the little people inside you can take a bit of a break and finally have that meeting about what that weird lump is on your shoulder. After meat, one of the oldest cooked foods is bread. The process of combining flour and yeast may seem an unlikely discovery, but yeast actually grows naturally on cereal grain that is left out. So it was one of those happy accidents, like when someone dropped a pig in maple syrup and bacon pancakes were invented. The next major discovery was learning how to make food last longer. Because chasing mammoths and foraging for berries every day was tiring, and we suspected that TV would be invented soon, and we didn't want to be too busy chasing deer to be able to watch it. There are numerous ways to preserve food, and different climates gave rise to different techniques. The main aim of preservation is to kill microbes, and to prevent them from having the moisture they need to multiply. In hot climates, this can be done through drying, but it wasn't so easy for us damp people far from the equator. Those in more moderate climates turn to salting their food to preserve it instead. Osmosis is where the water inside a cell tries to reach the same concentration as the water outside the cell. So when you salt a meat, the moisture outside the cells has more salt than the moisture inside the cells, so the water is drawn out through the semi-permeable cell wall to try and balance it out. It's a bit like communism, but with less furry hats and more water. Other methods of preservation include smoking, sugaring, pickling, jellying, or just hiding your food somewhere where all the microbes can't find it. With the rise of electricity, the refrigerator became an everyday item for almost every household. The great thing about a fridge is that you get the benefit of longer lasting food without having to dramatically alter its flavour or texture, which most preservation techniques often do. It also enabled us to plan ahead, rather than having to constantly buy things we needed that day. Scottish physician William Cullen is considered the founding father of the fridge, since he gave the first recorded demonstration of artificial refrigeration back in 1756. The modern fridge works by pumping a coolant through a series of evaporator and condenser coils. Soon we will embrace the futuristic power of the smart fridge, where you will be able to text your device on your way home to see if you're out of milk. And it'll probably start hiding the cheese if it thinks you put a few pounds on. You're not the boss of me, fridge. One of the most reliable and long-lasting ways to preserve food is with canning, an invention that largely came about thanks to a game that the world likes to play, Cold War. Humans love war, we play it all the time. But it does make lunch rather complicated when you've covered all your veg in mustard gas and blown the legs off your chef. Frenchman Nicholas Appert won a substantial 12,000 franc prize for developing a way of sealing food in glass jars to help the troops in the Napoleonic Wars. Canning slowly developed from here. although the lead they used to solder the cans didn't do people much good. But it was about 100 years later, when World War I started, that it really took off. Unfortunately, there weren't enough tins to keep the Brits happy, and by 1917 British soldiers were issued with cigarettes and amphetamines to try to suppress their appetite. Both world wars had a major effect on food, especially in Britain, since we imported a large percentage of our produce. Rationing during World War II greatly reduced the availability of a lot of products, so much so that many children thought that fruits such as the banana were fairy tale inventions that didn't actually exist, since they had never actually seen one. Rationing went on until 1954 in the UK, and this is largely how the British ended up with such a poor culinary reputation around the world. The food was incredibly boring because there weren't many options, and it took us a long while to get out of that habit. Next up is not a technique, but the one man who has had the biggest influence on food all around the world is Auguste Escoffier. His book Le Guide Culinaire, published in 1903, broke down the methods and techniques that make up all classical cookery. It forms the basis of classical chef training to this day. In 1890, Escoffier moved to London to take control of the kitchens at the Savoy Hotel. His system of organising a kitchen had a huge impact on their safety and on the consistency of the food. By breaking the cooking process into sections, each chef became part of a team who oversaw only a few small parts of the meal, enabling them to perfect it and repeat it. Before Escoffier, it had all been a bit hectic, and you'd be lucky to get a sandwich without someone chopping off a finger and getting hair in the butter. Dining at the Savoy became hugely popular and was what started London's restaurant culture, since before this, aristocratic families would have their very own chefs and eat in their own grand houses. But with the draw of great cooks, hotels began to get crowds of excited diners, and so the fine dining restaurants came after. Without Escoffier, the emperor of chefs, there'd be no Long Clume, no Gordon Ramsay, and no cheeky Nando's. When your tummy is rumbling and you scroll through all the things that you could possibly eat in your head, pizza, tacos, ramen, a kebab, a curry, sushi, you soon realise that the one thing that affects what we eat today more than anything else is immigration. There has certainly been a long history of ingredients being discovered and included in national cuisines. Just look at potatoes, sugar, rice. But it is the people who bring the rich history of the food and the new ways of preparing it that really increase a country's eating vocabulary. The Italians gave New York a lot of its famed cuisine, and try taking a Californian to a Mexican restaurant outside of their own state. You'll get more tutting than at a political debate. Curry is now one of Great Britain's leading national dishes, and the famous chicken tikka masala, one of Britain's most eaten dishes, was something invented here as part of the influence of immigrants. But it's not actually an Indian dish. So who knows what exciting new dishes will be invented in the next 10 years thanks to the power of shared knowledge. Food preparation has been rather basic up until now. It's only in recent years that we've started experimenting with how technology can shape our food, from sous vide to sperification. Perhaps in the future we'll be able to grow perfect steaks in jars, and splice wheat DNA with a deep fat fryer so we can grow donuts in our own garden. Well, one can dream at least. Thanks for the view, subscribe for more. 42. Lies a 1.2 square kilometre island called Hans Island. And Canada and Denmark just can't help but put their sticky Hans all over it. There really is absolutely nothing going on in there. Scientists have discovered that the beloved koala bear may be the least intelligent mammal on the planet.